never did we never did a measles and vaccine episode. Is this a joke?
I know.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It was on you. It was on you.
I've never had, Raymond, I've never had measles. What are you talking about? This is stupid.
It was an episode of a show, Laura.
Well, what's it called?
You.
What is he talking about?
It's called You.
I've never done a show on measles. I just completely give up. We got to get
It's
on.
a show.
I give up.
Fox News, a network known for its controversial takes and heated debate, but sometimes even they outdo themselves. Today, we're counting down Fox News clips that are utterly embarrassing, cringe-inducing, and downright hard to watch. From misguided arguments to casual racism, we've combed through years of footage to bring you the moments that'll make you wonder if you're watching real news or a parody. Our number one pick is so jaw-dropping you might not believe it's real. So sit back, maybe grab a stress ball, and let's dive into Fox News at its most facepalm-worthy.
The guy who assigned him to this is a fellow by the name of Stephen Redcliffe. And Mr. Redcliffe actually used to work for this company. He worked, I think he was the editor in charge of TV Guide until circulation went down under his tenure, something like 40%.
In a shocking breach of journalistic ethics, Fox and Friends once aired doctored photos of two New York Times journalists, digitally altering their appearances to look less flattering. This incident occurred in 2008 and involved New York Times reporter Jacques Steinberg and editor Stephen Redcliffe. The altered photos depicted Steinberg with discolored teeth, a widened nose and chin, and darkened sunken eyes. Redcliffe's image was similarly manipulated, featuring yellow teeth, dark circles under the eyes, and a digitally recessed hairline. This unethical practice raised serious questions about Fox News' integrity and its treatment of media figures it perceived as rivals. The deliberate manipulation of images to make journalists appear unattractive was not only unprofessional, but potentially libelous. The New York Times responded with a statement calling the photo manipulation beneath comment. Media ethics experts widely condemned the practice, seeing it as evidence of Fox News' willingness to engage in personal attacks against perceived enemies in the media. 25. The hip-hop BBQ. Headline fiasco. Fox Nation, the online arm of Fox News, once ran a headline referring to President Obama's 50th birthday celebration as a hip-hop BBQ. The full headline read, "Obama's hip-hop BBQ didn't create jobs," accompanied by a photo of President Obama eating ribs. This racially charged characterization of an event attended by a diverse group of politicians and celebrities drew sharp criticism for its obvious racial stereotyping. The term hip-hop has often been used as a stand-in for black in certain contexts, and combining it with BBQ seemed to play into stereotypes about African American culture. The characterization was particularly egregious given the actual nature of the event. While some hip-hop artists like Jay-Z were in attendance, the guest list was diverse and included many figures not associated with hip-hop at all, such as actor Tom Hanks, comedian Chris Rock, and numerous political leaders. 24. The Santa Claus and Jesus controversy.
And when I saw this headline, I kind of laughed, and I said, oh, this is so ridiculous. Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa. You know, and by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white, but this person is just arguing that maybe we should also have a black Santa. But, you know, Santa is what he is, and just so you know, we're just debating this because someone wrote about it, kids.
In December 2013, Megyn Kelly, then a prominent Fox News anchor, sparked a nationwide controversy by adamantly declaring that both Santa Claus and Jesus were white. This statement came during a segment discussing a Slate article by Aisha Harris about the need for more diverse representations of Santa Claus. Kelly stated on air, "For all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white." She then added, "Jesus was a white man too. It's like we have, he's a historical figure. That's a verifiable fact, as is Santa. I just want kids to know that." These comments ignited a firestorm of criticism and mockery. Historians quickly pointed out that Jesus, as a Middle Eastern Jew, would likely not have been white by modern standards. As for Santa Claus, while the historical St. Nicholas was from an area now part of modern Turkey, the modern image of Santa Claus is a relatively recent cultural creation that has been depicted in various ways around the world. Kelly's insistence on the whiteness of these figures highlighted several issues, including a lack of cultural sensitivity and an inability to consider perspective outside of a narrow Eurocentric viewpoint. It also underscored Fox News' tendency to frame even non-political issues in terms of cultural conflict. 23. The War on Christmas narrative.
Americans officially got the day off from work. Now, everything was swell up until about 10 years ago when creeping secularism and pressure groups like the ACLU began attacking the Christmas holiday. They demanded the word Christmas be removed from advertising and public displays, and many people caved into that.
For years, Fox News has pushed a narrative about a supposed war on Christmas, claiming that secular forces are trying to eliminate the holiday. This annual tradition of manufacturing outrage over inclusive holiday greetings and decorations has become a source of mockery for many viewers and a prime example of the network's tendency to inflame cultural divisions. The war on Christmas narrative gained prominence on Fox News in the early 2000s, largely through the efforts of Bill O'Reilly on his show The O'Reilly Factor. O'Reilly and other Fox News personalities began to argue that there was a concerted effort by liberals, atheists, and other groups to remove Christmas from the public sphere. Examples cited as evidence of this war included stores using Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas in their greetings, public schools holding winter rather than Christmas concerts, and the use of holiday trees instead of Christmas trees in public spaces. Critics have long argued that the war on Christmas is a manufactured controversy, pointing out that the use of inclusive language and practices during the holiday season is an attempt to acknowledge the diversity of beliefs in modern America rather than an attack on Christmas itself. 22. The SpongeBob SquarePants global warming controversy.
It's hard to even follow sometimes. Anyway, now maybe that'll be a good thing, because SpongeBob is talking a lot about global warming, and he's only looking at it from one point of view.
In a bizarre twist that left many viewers scratching their heads, Fox and Friends took aim at everyone's favorite animated sea sponge, SpongeBob SquarePants, for allegedly pushing a global warming agenda through an educational book about going green. The segment aired in 2011 and focused on a free book giveaway by the U.S. Department of Education, which included a SpongeBob book titled SpongeBob Goes Green, an Earth-Friendly Adventure. Fox and Friends host Gretchen Carlson questioned whether the book was pushing a global warming agenda, while her co-host, Steve Doocy, declared, "Clearly, Nickelodeon is pushing a global warming agenda." This peculiar segment highlighted the network's tendency to find controversy in unexpected places, even children's entertainment. The idea that a cartoon character aimed at young children could be part of a larger conspiracy to indoctrinate youth with environmental awareness struck many as absurd. 21. The Poverty Isn't So Bad segment.
Robert, I'm just going to give our viewers a quick run-through of what items poor families in America have. 99% of them have a refrigerator. 81% have a microwave. 78% have air conditioning. 63% have cable TV. 54% have cell phones. 48% have a coffee maker. I'm not surprised, they're only about $10. 38% have a computer. 32% have more than 2 TVs. 25% have a dishwasher. This, sir, Mr. Rector, is very different from what it was just a few years ago, isn't it?
A Fox News segment attempted to downplay the severity of poverty in America by pointing out that many low-income households own appliances like refrigerators and microwaves. This tone-deaf analysis ignored the complex realities of modern poverty and drew widespread criticism for its lack of empathy and understanding. The controversial segment aired on Your World with Neil Cavuto in July 2011, featuring a discussion of a Heritage Foundation study titled Air Conditioning, Cable TV, and an Xbox: What is Poverty in the United States Today? The study argued that the living standards of those classified as poor in America were actually quite high compared to historical standards or poverty in other countries. During the segment, host Stuart Varney presented graphics showing high rates of appliance ownership among households classified as poor. 99.6% of the poor have a refrigerator. 81.4% have a microwave, Varney stated, adding 72% have a car, 31% have 2 or more cars. Varney and his guest used these statistics to argue that poverty in America isn't as severe as often portrayed. They suggested that the presence of these appliances indicated that the poor in America live relatively comfortable lives. This segment drew immediate and intense criticism from poverty experts, social justice advocates, and even some conservative commentators. Critics pointed out that items like refrigerators and microwaves are necessities in modern America, not luxuries, and that owning these basic appliances doesn't negate the very real struggles of living in poverty. 20. The Obama pirate photo misinterpretation. In September 2012, Fox and Friends ran a segment suggesting President Obama had met with a pirate instead of the Israeli Prime Minister. The story originated from a Drudge Report post showing Obama with a man dressed as a pirate, alongside the headline, "But no time for Netanyahu." Fox and Friends host Brian Kilmeade introduced the segment saying, "The White House doesn't have time for Netanyahu, but the president has time for this." Co-host Steve Doocy added, "So much for the Middle East peace." However, the entire premise was based on a misunderstanding. The pirate photo was actually taken in 2009 for a White House Correspondents' Dinner skit and had been tweeted by the Obama campaign for Talk Like a Pirate Day. It had no connection to Netanyahu's visit or any current events. 19. The evil Mr. Rogers segment.
This evil man has now ruined a generation of kids.
And you know what? I'm with Captain Kangaroo. He was half a generation ahead.
That explains a few things, Steve.
Absolutely, because these experts are saying that the kids of today who grew up with Mr. Rogers were told by him, "You're special, just for being who you are."
In a segment that left many viewers baffled and outraged, Fox and Friends labeled beloved children's TV host Fred Rogers as evil for telling children they're special just for being themselves. This attack on a widely respected figure, known for kindness and inclusivity, backfired spectacularly, drawing criticism from across the political spectrum. The controversial segment aired in July 2007, shortly after Mr. Rogers' posthumous induction into the TV Hall of Fame. Fox and Friends host Steve Doocy introduced the topic by asking, "Is Mr. Rogers to blame for this whole generation of people who think they're special even when they're not?" The show then brought on Don Chance, a finance professor from Louisiana State University, who argued that Mr. Rogers' message of unconditional self-worth had created a generation of entitled young people. Fox News contributor Heather Nauert chimed in, calling Rogers this evil, evil man, and suggesting that his message was responsible for creating a generation of lazy, unmotivated adults. This attack on Mr. Rogers, a figure beloved by millions for his gentle demeanor and positive messages, struck many as not just misguided, but actively malicious. Fred Rogers had dedicated his life to children's education and emotional well-being, using his show to address complex issues like death, divorce, and self-esteem in ways that young children could understand. The blowback to this segment was swift and resolute. Viewers across the political spectrum expressed shock and disgust at the characterization of Mr. Rogers as evil. Child development experts pointed out that Rogers' message of self-worth was based on sound psychological principles, and that feeling valued is crucial for healthy child development. 18. The 120% Poll Gaffe. Fox News once aired a poll claiming that 120% of Americans believed scientists falsify global warming data. This mathematical impossibility occurred on Fox Nation, the network's digital platform. The poll, based on a Rasmussen report survey, should have shown that 120% of Republicans held this belief, not all Americans. This glaring error went beyond a simple typo, raising questions about Fox News' fact-checking processes and potential bias in climate change coverage. The incident reflected the network's long-standing skepticism towards climate science and its tendency to platform climate change deniers. Although eventually corrected, the error was widely shared and mocked on social media and other news outlets. It served as a reminder of the importance of rigorous fact-checking in news media, especially when dealing with complex and contentious issues like climate change. The gaffe encapsulated many criticisms of Fox News environmental coverage, suggesting a willingness to present misleading information to support particular narratives. 17. The Chelsea Manning Insensitivity.
Chelsea Manning wants to live the rest of his life as a lady. How the New York Times, are they helping him out now? That's Chelsea on the right.
Fox and Friends once introduced a segment on Chelsea Manning, a transgender woman and former U.S. Army intelligence analyst, with Aerosmith's song Dude Looks Like a Lady. This insensitive choice of music highlighted the network's struggle to handle LGBTQ+ issues with respect and understanding. Manning, who was assigned male at birth and previously known as Bradley Manning, came out as transgender in 2013. She requested to be referred to with female pronouns and by her chosen name, Chelsea. However, Fox News continued to refer to her as Bradley and use male pronouns in their coverage. The use of Dude Looks Like a Lady as intro music for a segment about a transgender woman was widely criticized as transphobic and disrespectful. It trivialized Wiz W. Manning's gender identity and the serious issues surrounding her case, which involved the leaking of classified documents to WikiLeaks. This incident was part of a pattern of problematic coverage of LGBTQ+ issues on Fox News. The network has faced heavy criticism for its mishandling of topics related to gender identity and sexual orientation, often framing these issues in ways that many viewers find offensive or dismissive. 16. The Asians aren't liberal comment.
Asian. Right. And Asian people are not liberal, by nature. They're usually more industrious and hardworking.
In a stunning display of racial stereotyping, Bill O'Reilly once claimed that Asian Americans tend to be conservative because they're industrious and hardworking. This controversial statement came during a 2013 segment about Hawaii's debt crisis on his show, The O'Reilly Factor. O'Reilly expressed surprise at Hawaii's liberal leanings, given its large Asian population. Asian people are not liberal, by nature, he declared, adding, they're usually more industrious and hardworking. This reductive and offensive statement not only perpetuated harmful stereotypes, but also demonstrated a profound misunderstanding of political diversity within ethnic groups. O'Reilly's comments ignored the complex historical, social, and economic factors that influence political leaning, instead relying on outdated and simplistic racial generalizations. The backlash was swift and severe, with Asian American advocacy groups and political commentators denouncing O'Reilly's remarks as racist and ignorant. 15. The liberal women shouldn't hold office statement.
No, I used to think women just shouldn't be able to vote. Now I think at least liberal women should not be able to hold office. And by woman, I do not mean to limit that to the biological sense. That is not an answer. Right. I'm offended.
In a shocking display of sexism and political intolerance, conservative commentator Ann Coulter, during an appearance on Fox News, declared that liberal women shouldn't be allowed to hold office. This outrageous statement came as part of a broader attack on female Democratic politicians. Coulter likened Senator Dianne Feinstein to another I am woman, hear me roar Democrat, Hillary Clinton, and claimed that as soon as they get a question they don't like, they start crying. She then added, I used to think women should not be able to vote, and now I think liberal women should not be able to hold office. This statement was not only deeply sexist, but also fundamentally anti-democratic, suggesting that political views should be a basis for excluding individuals from participating in government. It represented a dangerous conflation of gender stereotypes with political disagreement, implying that women who hold liberal views are somehow less capable or worthy of political office. 14. The Obama assassination joke.
And now we have what some are reading as a suggestion that somebody knock off Obama. Well, both, if we could.
Talk about how you really feel. But do you really think...
In a shocking lapse of judgment, Fox News analyst Liz Trotta made a joke about assassinating then-candidate Barack Obama during a 2008 broadcast. This appalling comment crossed a line that even many of the network's critics found unthinkable. While discussing the Clinton campaign, Trotta made the following statement to host Eric Shawn. And now we have what some are reading as a suggestion that somebody knock off Obama. Well, both if we could. The casual suggestion of violence against a presidential candidate, especially one who was already facing heightened security concerns as the first African-American nominee of a major party, was met with immediate and intense backlash. Trotta's comment was not only deeply offensive, but also potentially dangerous, as it could be seen as normalizing or encouraging violence against a political figure. The Secret Service takes all threats against presidential candidates seriously, and such jokes can have real-world consequences. The incident raised serious questions about Fox News editorial standards and the kind of commentary it was willing to air. Many critics saw it as an example of the network's hostile coverage of Obama, taken to an extreme and unacceptable level. Trotta later apologized for her remark, but the damage was already done. 13. The Sandy Hook tragedy.
Interesting thing. We ask why there's violence in our schools, but we've systematically removed God from our schools. Should we be so surprised that schools would become a place of carnage because we've made it a place where we don't want to talk about eternity?
Fox News coverage of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in December 2012 sparked intense criticism on multiple fronts. The tragedy, which resulted in the deaths of 20 children and 6 adults in Newtown, Connecticut, became a flashpoint for controversial commentary on the network. In one of its most egregious missteps, Fox News gave airtime to conspiracy theories suggesting the shooting was a hoax. Despite the lack of credible evidence, guests were allowed to discuss these baseless claims on air, causing immense distress to the victims' families and drawing widespread condemnation from journalists, mental health professionals, and the public. Simultaneously, Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee made a contentious statement linking the violence to the absence of God in school. He suggested that the systematic removal of God from schools was responsible for such tragedies, asking, should we be so surprised that schools would become a place of carnage? Huckabee's comments were widely criticized as insensitive and simplistic, ignoring the complex factors contributing to gun violence. Religious leaders and mental health experts alike condemned the statement for its theological implications and potential stigmatization of mental illness. 12. The dominant role debate.
I'll start with you, Eric. What makes you dominant and me submissive? And who died made you scientist-in-chief?
A panel of male Fox News personalities expressed dismay over a study showing an increase in female breadwinners. Eric Erickson, a Fox contributor, went so far as to claim it was anti-science to suggest that men shouldn't always be the dominant partner in a relationship. During a segment on Lou Dobbs Tonight, Erickson stated, "When you look at biology, look at the natural world, the roles of a male and a female in society, and other animal, the male typically is the dominant role." This archaic view of gender roles drew immediate criticism from various quarters, including from within Fox News itself. Megyn Kelly, then a prominent Fox News anchor, later brought both Dobbs and Erickson on her program and strongly challenged their views. Kelly pointed out the flaws in their argument, saying, "I didn't like what you wrote one bit. To me, you sound like somebody who's judging and then wants to come out and say, I'm not, and now let me judge. And by the way, it's science. It's science, it's fact. Well, I have a whole list of studies saying your science is wrong and your facts are wrong. 11. The Lauren Green-Reza Aslan interview.
So it's not that I'm just some Muslim writing about Jesus. I am an expert with a PhD in the history of religions. But I've been obsessed with Jesus.
It still begs the question, why would you be interested in the founder of Christianity?
Because it's my job as an academic. I am a professor of religion, including the New Testament. That's what I do for a living, actually.
In a now infamous interview, Fox News anchor Lauren Green repeatedly questioned author Reza Aslan about why a Muslim would write a book about Jesus. This embarrassing exchange took place in 2013 when Aslan appeared on FoxNews.com to discuss his book, Zealot: The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. Green opened the interview with the question, "You're a Muslim, so why did you write a book about the founder of Christianity?" This immediately set a confrontational tone and betrayed a fundamental misunderstanding of academic religious scholarship. Aslan, visibly taken aback, patiently explained his credentials as a scholar of religions with 4 degrees, including a PhD in the subject, fluency in Biblical Greek, and 2 decades of academic study of Christianity. Despite this, Green persisted in her line of questioning, repeatedly returning to Aslan's Muslim faith as if it inherently disqualified him from writing about Jesus. The interview quickly devolved into a cringe-worthy display of religious bias and journalistic malpractice. Green appeared to be fishing for controversy where none existed, ignoring Aslan's explanations and the basic premise of academic religious study. 10. The some downside to having a woman president comment.
I know you probably thought about this very much, Kirsten.
Oh, yeah.
There's got to be some downside to having a woman president, right? Something that may not fit with that office.
In a segment that left many viewers stunned, Bill O'Reilly once suggested that there must be some downside to having a woman president. This comment came during a discussion about the possibility of a female president in the future. O'Reilly posed the question to his female panelists, asking, "There has got to be some downside to having a woman president, right? Something that may not fit with that office, correct?" The panelists, visibly taken aback, responded with a firm no. This statement was widely criticized as sexist and outdated. It implied that being a woman was inherently incompatible with the presidency, ignoring the fact that many other countries have had successful female leaders. O'Reilly's comment highlighted ongoing issues with gender bias in political discourse, particularly in conservative media. It suggested a lingering skepticism about women's capabilities in high leadership positions, despite ample evidence to the contrary. 9. The Thomas Ricks interview cut short.
And second, I think that the emphasis on Benghazi has been extremely political, partly because Fox was operating as a wing of the Republican Party.
All right. Tom Ricks, thanks very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Fox News abruptly ended an interview with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Thomas Ricks after he criticized the network's Benghazi coverage. Ricks, invited to discuss the attack on the U.S. consulate in Libya, stated that the incident had been hyped by this network especially and accused Fox News of operating as a wing of the Republican Party. Immediately following these comments, the anchor terminated the interview, citing time constraints. This abrupt ending was widely interpreted as an attempt to silence criticism of the network's editorial approach. 8. O'Reilly's slippery slope turtle argument.
If you allow one thing to happen, then another thing, then another thing.
You would let everybody get married who want to get married. You want to marry a turtle, you can.
Bill O'Reilly, once a prominent Fox News host, gained notoriety for his peculiar arguments against same-sex marriage. For years, he repeatedly claimed that legalizing gay marriage would lead to interspecies unions, suggesting humans might marry goats, ducks, dolphins, or turtles. This slippery slope argument, widely criticized as absurd and offensive, became a recurring theme in O'Reilly's coverage of LGBTQ+ issues. His sensationalist rhetoric exemplified Fox News' often controversial approach to discussing gay rights. Interestingly, O'Reilly's stance appeared to soften over time. By 2013, he stated that he doesn't feel strongly about same-sex marriage, marking a significant shift from his earlier, more inflammatory positions. 7. The pure genes comment.
We keep marrying other species and other ethnics and other...
Are you sure you're not suffering from some of the causes of dementia right now?
See, the problem is the Swedes have pure genes because they marry other Swedes, because that's the rule. Finns marry other Finns, so they have a pure society. In America, we marry everybody. Okay. So we marry Italians and Irish.
So this study does not apply?
Does not apply to us.
In a shocking display of racial insensitivity, Fox and Friends host Brian Kilmeade once suggested that Americans aren't pure like the Swedes because they keep marrying other species and other ethnics. This comment came during a discussion about a Swedish study on Alzheimer's disease. Kilmeade suggested that the study's findings might not apply to Americans because we keep marrying other species and other ethnics. Swedes have pure genes. In America, we marry everybody. This statement not only demonstrated a profound misunderstanding of genetics and race, but also employed deeply offensive language reminiscent of racist ideologies. The use of terms like pure genes and the implication that interracial marriages involve different species drew immediate and intense criticism. Many pointed out the racist undertones of such language and its connection to discredited theories of racial purity. Kilmeade later apologized, saying his comments were inappropriate and that America's diversity is what makes it great. However, the incident remained a stark example of the casual racism that sometimes surfaces in cable news discussions. 6. The Obama terrorist fist jab comment.
A fist bump, a pound, a terrorist fist jab? The gesture everyone seems to interpret differently. We'll show you some interesting body communication and find out what it really says.
In June 2008, Fox News anchor E.D. Hill sparked controversy by referring to a fist bump between Barack and Michelle Obama as a terrorist fist jab. During a teaser for her show America's Pulse, Hill questioned the nature of this common greeting, suggesting it might have sinister connotations. The incident drew immediate criticism, with many viewing it as an example of Fox News' tendency to cast the Obamas in a suspicious light. Critics pointed out the racial insensitivity of the comment, which played into unfounded fears about Obama's background. It also highlighted a cultural disconnect, showing a lack of familiarity with gestures common among younger and more diverse communities. The controversy was seen as an attempt to manufacture controversy from a simple, affectionate gesture between the couple. Many interpreted it as evidence of the network's political bias and hostile stance towards Obama's candidacy. 5. The Shut Up Interview.
I hope your mom isn't watching this. I hope your mother is not watching this, because you... That's it. I'm not going to say any more. Okay. In respect for your father,
September 14th, you want to know what I was doing?
Shut up.
In one of the most confrontational interviews in Fox News history, Bill O'Reilly shouted at Jeremy Glick, the son of a 9/11's victim, to shut up and had his microphone cut off. This incident occurred in 2003 when Glick appeared on The O'Reilly Factor to discuss his opposition to the war in Afghanistan. Glick's father was a Port Authority worker who was killed in the World Trade Center attack. However, instead of supporting military action, Glick argued that it would be wrong for innocent Afghan citizens to die because of the actions of Taliban extremists. O'Reilly, known for his combative interview style, strongly disagreed with Glick's perspective. The interview quickly became heated, with O'Reilly growing increasingly agitated by Glick's anti-war stance. Eventually, O'Reilly lost his temper, shouting at Glick to shut up and ordering the producers to cut Glick's microphone. This aggressive treatment of a 9/11's victim's family member shocked many viewers and drew widespread criticism. O'Reilly's inability to engage respectfully with a grieving son who held a different political view was seen as a low point in the network's coverage of 9/11's and its aftermath. O'Reilly later defended his actions, calling it his most offensive interview ever, and stating that he was angered by what he perceived as Glick's disrespect for the victims of 9/11's. However, many saw O'Reilly's reaction as disproportionate and unprofessional. 4. The Obama Communist Conspiracy Theory.
I got to get to the IRS, but I just want to say that your detractors believe that you did not tell the world it was a terror attack because your campaign didn't want that out.
Bill,
That's what they believe.
And they believe it because folks like you are telling them
I'm
that.
not telling them that.
Glenn Beck, during his tenure at Fox News from 2009 to 2011, made an outlandish claim suggesting President Obama and his communist associates wanted to kill 10% of the American population. Beck linked this conspiracy to Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground, a radical 1970s group. This baseless and inflammatory theory represented a peak in far-right conspiracies aired on Fox News during Obama's presidency. It raised serious questions about the network's editorial standards and the responsibility of news organizations in vetting hosts' claims. The incident highlighted the blurred line between news and opinion on Fox, contributing to broader concerns about the spread of conspiracy theories in mainstream media. It underscored the challenge of balancing provocative commentary with factual reporting in news organizations. 3. Bob Beckel campus comments.
Where was Will right there? Heard about a rape on campus.
What?
What are you talking about? It's like rampant. It's rampant? Rapes on campus?
In particular, date rape on campus. Wow. Yes, Bob, it's a very big problem.
Are you going to take a gun out and shoot your date? I don't know.
Maybe you should.
If your date is a rapist, you shoot them.
In 2013, Fox News contributor Bob Beckel sparked outrage by suggesting campus rape was rare or perhaps even non-existent, leaving his co-hosts on The Five visibly shocked. This incident marked the beginning of a pattern of problematic coverage on the issue by the network. As the University of Virginia Rolling Stone controversy unfolded in 2014 to 2015, other Fox personalities continued to make contentious statements. Andrea Tantaris claimed media focus on sexual assault was waging a war on boys, while Britt Hume cast doubt on campus rape statistics, alleging liberals had fabricated the narrative. 2. The racial profiling endorsement.
Either we believe in the Constitution
Well, we don't believe in the
Not
Constitution.
everyone is worthy of the constitutional rights that we have.
Fox and Friends hosts Brian Kilmeade and Peter Johnson Jr. openly championed racial profiling of Arab travelers in a segment on airport security. Johnson suggested asking travelers if they were here for jihad, while Kilmeade claimed people from countries like Saudi Arabia needed extra background checks. This endorsement of discriminatory practices was widely condemned as racist and unconstitutional. The host's casual suggestion that certain ethnicities should be automatically suspected of terrorism highlighted a problematic mindset. The incident reinforced harmful stereotypes, disregarded civil liberties, spread misinformation about racial profiling's effectiveness, and risked normalizing discrimination. 1. Geraldo Rivera blames the Trayvon Martin shooting on hoodies.
But I am urging the parents of Black and Latino youngsters particularly to not let their children go out wearing hoodies. I think the hoodie is as much responsible for Trayvon Martin's death as George Zimmerman was.
In perhaps the most tone-deaf and offensive moment in Fox News history, Geraldo Rivera claimed that Trayvon Martin's hoodie was as much responsible for his death as George Zimmerman was. This statement came after the tragic shooting of Martin, an unarmed black teenager, by neighborhood watch coordinator Zimmerman in Florida. In 2012, Rivera advised parents, especially those of black and Latino youth, not to let their children wear hoodies. His comments sparked intense criticism for victim blaming and ignited a national conversation about racial profiling and the criminalization of black youth. The backlash was immediate and severe, forcing Rivera to apologize, though many found his apology inadequate. The incident highlighted issues of racial profiling, victim blaming, and the trivialization of complex racial issues. It also raised questions about media responsibility in discussing sensitive topics. This controversy became a defining moment in the national dialogue about race, justice, and media representation following Martin's death. It remains one of the most notorious incidents in Fox News history, exemplifying the network's problematic handling of race-related stories and the power of media to shape public perception. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think was Fox News' most embarrassing moment? Have you ever caught a news network making a similar gaffe?